Hi, everyone. May peace be on you all, and welcome to another episode of I'm a Muslim and That's Okay. And as you can see, I have my co host back. It's the first time she showed up in my, season, but y'all know her. And this is the gift of the gab, and election season is here, and we all know it's important to vote. But statistics say, and I'm hoping that these are recent statistics, but 1 in 3 Americans do not vote. That in itself is a problem because there's a lot of people who are not going out and exercising their right. And that's why I have my guest with me, Marlon Duran. And Marlon is let me get this straight. I mean, I'm reading it off my phone, but let's get this straight. You are a community organizer from the Rio Grande Valley of Texas, and you have like quite a few years of experience in the political and community organizing for political campaigns and for nonprofits. And currently, you are the field organizer for the Jill Stein campaign. Please tell us a little more about yourself.
Thank you, Shayla, for having me on. Um, so yes, I am a community organizer with several years' experience in
Mm,
several different campaigns and movements.
hmm.
I've worked in the immigration movement,
Oh, wow.
LGBT movement.
Mm.
Um, I'm also trying to do this new thing with friends called spiritual organizing,
Oh,
um, which is
wow.
which is not really new. It's been done forever. But I think we should, as someone on the left, we should
Mm,
dive back and deeper into our spiritual traditions.
for sure.
Um, yes, in Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism, a lot of these um, ancient faiths have very strong spiritual organizing traditions that I
Yeah.
think we should get reacquainted with.
I think that's so important, and not something that, like, I mean, I guess now I've seen the trends on TikTok and everything. There is definitely a shift towards like spiritual awakening, uplifting, all of these things. I think again that is so great as a woman of faith. I always appreciate that. But that's not why I have you here, Marlon. The reason why I have you here is because of the statistics I just quoted earlier. Is that a lot of people don't go out and vote. One of the main things that you get to hear is this that there is a sort of a hopelessness in people. Is like, what's the point? So, like, I'm sure as a community organizer, especially for a political campaign, you encounter this a lot that people are just unwilling to vote because, especially at this point, they feel that what's the point? Either way, there's huge rise in homelessness. Healthcare is absolutely unaffordable. Multiple genocides, the list keeps going on and on. So, how can you like reach out to people and say that even with all of this, it's still important to vote?
So, first of all, I want to say that my opinions are my own
Of course.
and they do not necessarily reflect the views of my employers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but, I think most people are disillusioned.
Mm,
And a huge percentage of the United States, I think it was the majority until the last presidential election, don't vote, um,
right.
because they feel powerless. They feel that voting doesn't matter.
Right.
It doesn't change anything. And they feel like it'll do nothing.
Mm,
Or the more important reason is that they know that both major parties, the
mm,
Democrats and Republicans, don't represent them,
right.
and don't have their best interests in mind. And they're
Right.
absolutely right.
Right.
Both parties are parties of war.
Mm,
They're parties of Wall Street.
mm,
Um, it's unconscionable that that there's so many genocides going on
right.
in Gaza, in Congo, in Sudan, in so many
Mm,
parts of the world,
Right.
um, to uphold the profits of Wall Street and this capitalist empire
Mm.
headed by our government.
Right.
Um, and and we're not better off here. Like you said, there's rising homelessness, the
Hmm.
price of everything is going up, rent is going up.
Right.
Um, so I I like reaching out to people, and as an organizer, one of my favorite things to do is to show them that they are very powerful. They have so much power, and we
Right.
can create change. And I am with the Jill Stein campaign because
Mm.
I know that Jill, on day one of her presidency, will end the genocide in Gaza and begin the dismantling of the U.S. empire that oppresses the world. Um, we need another option. We need a political party that is for the people, that is
Right.
by the people, that is not bought by APAC, by Wall Street,
Mm.
by the military-industrial complex. And so I am in the work of building that.
Mm.
I'm part of the Green Party. I'm part of the Texas State Executive Committee,
Mm.
and the National Committee.
Hmm.
And the Green Party isn't perfect, but it's way better than the Democrats or the Republicans. And there are other leftist parties like the PSL, um, and the Party of Socialism and Freedom. And I would really like, after this campaign, no matter its outcome, I really think we all need to get together and
Hmm.
start to form a united leftist socialist party
Mm.
here in the United States. Because we here in the imperial core have the privilege and the responsibility of dismantling the empire from the inside. We
Right.
can do that democratically,
Mm.
constitutionally, by winning elections, getting into power, and changing the laws of this country, and eventually the Constitution too.
Right.
We have the special position that we are in, um, as long as the democratic avenues for change are still open.
Right.
Um, mhm.
But here's the thing, Marlon. You know, most people still consider our political system blue and red. Okay. They're like, there's blue and there's red, and I'm still having to pay like $400 for weekly groceries. Right. So, how are we convincing them that even if either way, you do have to vote, otherwise, $400 for groceries ain't sustainable in any means, especially when the minimum wage is like $15 an hour, which is practically nothing. And people are still trying to reduce that even further, but you know.
Of course, of course. Um, our system is flawed.
Mm.
There's a lot of flaws in it, and a lot of them were intentional.
Mm.
Um, but the reason why things are bad and always get worse, no matter if the Democrats or Republicans are in power,
Mm.
is because both parties don't care about us. They don't care about people, our well-being, that we are economically secure, that we have good lives. They serve Wall Street. They serve the capitalist ruling class, whose only objective is to gain as much money as possible, no matter how many people they have to impoverish, how many people become homeless, how many people in the rest of the world they keep in poverty or even murder. All these systems are tied together and upheld by both parties. So of course, if you keep voting for both parties, the Democrats and Republicans, things will get worse and worse and worse. We need to create our own party that is for the people, that is not for the capitalists or for Wall Street, that does put human life and human dignity and human flourishing first,
Oh,
above
for
all.
for sure.
And hmm
Yeah.
and they might be tempted to not participate and not vote, as a way to protest against the system. But that is, in my opinion, the very worst thing you can do, because it just it opens the road for both Um, what we call it in third parties, we call it the duopoly, the Democrats and
Mm,
Republicans, for the duopoly, just to continue on their road to destruction.
right.
So and our ancestors, no matter who you are, where you're from, your background, our ancestors have gone through so much worse in the past. More than 100 years ago, even if you were the wealthiest, most powerful, rich white man, um, almost half your children were likely to die before the age of 5.
Oh yeah.
Because we had no like antibiotics, no.
Life expectancy was like
Yeah,
35.
yeah, yeah. And so like imagine that, like no matter who you were, no matter how much power and privilege and wealth you had, like imagine the trauma of seeing half your kids die before they just like how horrible that must have been. And our ancestors went through so many horrible things, abuse, poverty, starvation, slavery. If you go back enough, and they overcame all that so that we are here right now.
Mhm.
And so compared to all that, I think us, taking over our government nonviolently, democratically, and sometimes using nonviolent civil disobedience, um, is very easy and very possible. And I don't think it'll be as difficult as people think it will be. But we need to get together and stand up.
And again, like theoretically, all of this is a good idea. But that's the thing. A lot of people are not educated on the essentialness of voting. Majority of them are not registered to vote because their polling stations are far. There's so many things. There's gerrymandering. All of these things make it so hard for people to vote. And then they're like, really, what's the point? Because there's a lot of people, especially in those that exist on a certain level of poverty. Like it doesn't matter who comes in, who comes out. The level doesn't change. Um, so practically, elections coming this November, what would be the motivation for a lot of these people, and especially after the how it has been with our current president, vice president, and the Democratic presidential candidate. A lot of people have chosen to be uncommitted. Like that's what they will be writing on, like on their ballots. So um like what would you say to them? Okay, because these are people who are completely, like, they're disenfranchised from the whole system itself. For them it all seems the same. So why should they be casting any vote or going anything from being one party, other party, third party to instead of being uncommitted? Because technically that's also a sign of protest. Is it a good sign of protest? Is it a bad sign of protest? I'm asking your opinion about this because there's lots of uncommitted people now. I see it because they see that we are still funding the genocide in Palestine. We are still, throwing away billions of dollars in the war machine. So they're like, I don't like the options I have. I'm just gonna be not voting or just writing uncommitted. So is that a good plan, bad plan?
I would say that that would be a good plan
Mm,
if they had no good options. But they do have a good option in Dr. Jill Stein
mm,
and Dr. Butch Ware
mm,
and the Green Party. We are anti-empire, anti-genocide, anti-Zionist. Um, we know that there's more than enough wealth and resources for everyone on the planet to have
mm,
a good, comfortable, dignified life.
mm,
And we need to spend all that money on life and not on death.
mm.
Our government, um, it spends the bare minimum, on social welfare programs. Um,
Right.
like so many people slip through that, even what we have.
Right.
But we always have there's always money for war and
Mm-hmm.
death
Right.
and weapons. The military budget is keep increasing.
Astronomical.
Yes, yes, and we can change all that. We can cut all that defense spending,
Mm,
cut corporate subsidies, and spend that money on universal health care, on universal education, on universal housing. Um, and the Green Party wants to do all that. Um, we don't take any corporate donations, unlike the Democrats and Republicans who take all this money from corporations.
mm-hmm.
We only take money um, from people like you and me,
Right.
and from progressive groups, unions. So there's no corporate influence in our party. Um, and Dr. Jill Stein, she got arrested protesting the genocide in Gaza. She's the
Mm,
only presidential candidate who has done that, put her body and her freedom on the line, you know,
mm,
because it is his, this is so depraved. It's so wrong.
mm,
Um, and the people in power right now, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, um, they're going to keep supporting genocide in Gaza and other places because they are bought and sold and bought out by military industrial complex and APAC and the Zionist lobbies. But we are not. We can promise you that if we come into power, when we come into power, we will change all of these things because are not bought by corporate interests. And I will say
mm,
that voting is necessary, but it's not the only thing.
mm,
We need to take responsibility and be involved socially, politically in our government, in our society, more than just during election time.
mm. No, for sure. I understand that. But a lot of people don't have that option. Again, when you are living paycheck to paycheck, and it is very difficult to be in the political realm when you're just struggling to survive. Now I'm going to ask you the hard question, Marlon, and I've heard this over the interweb, because it's political season and everybody has an opinion. Um, the biggest criticism that I hear about the Green Party is just that, where are y'all for the rest of the 4 years in between presidential elections? Where are your local representatives? Because you got red representatives and blue representatives at the local level, at the all the way higher up. So how can I consider this a viable party when the representation is not there? If I do vote, isn't that like throwing away my vote? The Jill Stein possibly cannot get so many votes to be able to become president, etc., etc., etc. Popular rhetoric.
Those are very fair and very good questions. Um, so the the whole thing about the Green Party only running during the presidential election and only every 4 years is a lie.
Mm,
We have run many, many local, municipal, state wide elections. We have
mm,
had 1,500 candidates elected to office in the United States.
mm,
Um, the reason why people don't know this, is because the corporate media has a vested interest in lying and gaslighting,
mm,
like they've done with Palestine and so many issues
right.
that are very important. So I would say don't trust them. Don't trust anything that they say.
Mm,
We have existed for um, many decades. We have run many races, and we've elected 1,000 around 1,500 people to office in the
mm,
United States on all levels of government.
mm,
Um, from my own personal experience, I want to say that in 2016, Bernie Sanders, when he ran for president,
right.
he inspired me
Mm,
to think of a radical, new way that society could be organized.
Right.
And I think he did that for many people.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea then was like, okay, let's not form a third party, because maybe we can take over the Democratic Party and push it
Right.
to the left.
Right.
And, we tried that in 2016. It
Mm.
didn't work.
Right.
They rigged the primary.
Mm.
And then we tried it again in 2020, thinking, okay, maybe one more time. They
Mm-hmm.
rigged it again.
Mm.
And so I think people need to realize that the Democratic Party will never give up their power. They will never let themselves be fairly moved or taken over.
Right.
And we should, instead of taking all that energy that so many people like me, so many leftists took to try to change the party, we need to form our own party.
Mm.
And that criticism that voting for Jill or the Green Party is a vote thrown away,
Right.
I don't think is true at all. I think
Mm.
voting for the Democrats is throwing your vote away
Mm.
because things never get better and
Mm.
they're always getting worse and worse and worse. So I
Mm.
think that's the real throwaway vote. The definition of anxiety, Albert Einstein said the definition of anxiety is trying the same thing over and over again, expecting different results.
Right.
And voting for the duopoly is it's going to give you the same results it's gotten.
Right.
We need another party, and if historically, it's been done. Like if
Right.
you look at the UK,
Mm.
in the 19th century, it was the Conservative Party and the Liberals.
Right.
And then in the early 20th century, the Labour Party came
Mm.
along and supplanted the Liberals,
Mm.
and brought about amazing things, like decolonization, like universal health care, in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I would say like they need to do that again over there, but we can do that here and everywhere. If a progressive
Mm.
party stops being progressive, replace it.
Right.
So I think history has shown us we can do it.
Right. Second thing, and again, this is a huge fear within minority communities, minorities, underrepresented, those who are marginalized, is the threat of Trump coming back into power, Project 2025. So that's the other thing that keeps people voting blue, is just that this is a very real thing, that conservatives are pushing the country in a direction that is post-apocalyptic at best. Um, so especially for the everyday man, that especially the everyday minorities, everyday people who are underrepresented and those who are marginalized, that this would be a death knell for a lot of us. So in keeping that perspective, again, not voting and voting third party is a scary prospect. What should then voters really take into consideration?
So there has been a lot of fear mongering
Mm.
about Project 2025.
Mm.
Um, but and people are afraid that Trump will bring fascism into the country. I would say that fascism is already
Is already
here.
here. I mean, that's
Whether
not even like a thing, but please continue.
Yes, yeah, it is already here, whether it's red fascism or blue fascism.
Mm.
A lot of the policies that Trump and the Republicans tried to enact when they
Mm.
were in power, when Trump was in power, Biden has enacted, and he's been able to do so because there's no liberal outrage or opposition.
Mm.
Like Trump wanted to extend the border wall,
Right.
which is in my community in the borderlands.
Mm.
And there was a fight against it.
Right.
It stalled, but under Biden, it continued, and there was almost no opposition.
Mm-hmm.
Biden has continued Trump's disastrous immigration policies,
Right.
um, banning asylum seekers fleeing violence
Mm-hmm.
caused by our government interference in their country.
Mm.
Um, Kamala says she wants to be tougher than Trump on the border.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if you look at it, the Democrats, they say, "Oh, Trump is so scary.
Mm.
He's going to become a dictator." But then, if they thought that he was really such a danger, to our country and to our democracy and to marginalized people, why would they wish him well when he almost gets assassinated? You know, like, oh,
Ooh,
I'm so
that's
sorry. I
that's
hope
a
you're okay.
that's
Like,
walking
what?
the line, Marlon.
What? Like, if you really think he's gonna be a Hitler, like, why would you like? I mean, that's my personal opinion.
I get it. I
Uh,
get
and
it.
then, and then, if you look at what the Democrats have done,
Mm,
um, they increased the police budget more than
mm,
Trump. They increased the military budget more than Trump. If they're really afraid of him becoming a dictator,
mm.
why would they do that? You know, why would they
Right.
give him like the power and armament he needs to take over the country? You
Right.
know, unless um and if they do believe he'll be a dictator, they would want him to be because they would like if you would either increase the budget that much either because you don't believe it'll happen or because you want it to happen.
Right.
So those 2 points I think prove Democrats are not our friends.
Mm,
They we cannot and the thing is we cannot throw away the lives of the billions of black and brown people all over the world living under and being oppressed by our empire.
mm,
You know, the life of someone in New Orleans,
mm-hmm,
in New York, in Montana is
mm-hmm.
equal to the life of someone in Gaza.
Right.
We cannot consent to genocide because ultimately, there's that famous quote by that German preacher. He said, during the Holocaust, first they came for the communists, and I didn't say anything because I wasn't a communist.
Right.
And then they came for the socialists. I didn't say anything because I wasn't a socialist. And then they came for the trade unionists, and I didn't say anything. Then they came for the Jews, and I didn't say anything. And then they came for me, and there was no one else to speak out for me. Well,
Right.
the same thing is happening
Mm,
under a Democratic administration. They first they came for Gaza, and some people like unfortunately don't care, and they still want to vote for the Democrats. Then they're coming for immigrants and asylum seekers, you know,
right.
and people still don't think that's enough. And then now you have under Democratic governors and Democratic mayors, the harassment
Right.
and you know like destruction of the property and encampments of homeless people.
Right.
We have you know people here in the U.S. who are homeless being persecuted by Democrats.
Right.
They're it's they don't care about our rights. You know they like they're also fascists.
Mm,
If push comes to shove, they will. What you're afraid of Trump doing to us, they are already doing to us,
right.
and will continue to do to us.
Right. Right.
Um, you know, if you look at Cop City in Atlanta, all
Oh
these
yeah.
nonviolent protesters
Mm-hmm.
being charged with terrorism and all these and like all unconstitutional fascist actions. You know, a total
Right.
denial of habeas corpus, which is
Mm-hmm.
like what?
Right.
So you know, and you know, indigenous people, black people, have been living under fascism for like 500 years, you know,
Oh
since the
yeah. Yeah.
colonization began,
Right.
and both parties continue it. So I would say what you're afraid of Trump doing, Democrats are already doing, and they'll continue to do, whether Trump or Kamala
Mm,
get into power. So our best choice is to vote for Jill and for Jill to get into power.
right.
And you know, if all the people who don't vote voted for Jill, she would win. If you know half of them voted, and most people who vote Democrat, you know, who want progressive change but are afraid of Trump, voted for Jill, she would win. So we
Right.
can win. It is a mathematical possibility, and it's the only possibility we have to do
Right.
if we value the lives of the billions of black and brown people being oppressed by U.S. empire as much as our own.
Right. Right. So many things that have to take into consideration, Marlon. But I am so grateful that you took out the time because these are discussions that I'm hoping that can happen before the election because a lot of things have to change and we do have to think deeply about how and why we are voting. That's my message to everybody out there. If you're not voting, please do register to vote. That's my personal opinion because it is important to vote. and look at the issues. Hold your representatives accountable. That's, I think, one of the biggest issues that sort of comes with this, that we vote but then we're not putting enough pressure. So please get out and vote. And thank you so much, Marlon, for being here with me, with my audience, and really breaking it down that there's a lot of things in the system that are going wrong. And unless we really get up, get out, vote, put the pressure on, whichever way we can, it's not going to change. At this point, we are literally, that's the thing. It's like blackmailing on either side.
Yes,
That's,
it's a
yeah,
politically abusive relationship.
it's a very politically abusive
Yes,
relationship.
and we need to
So
leave our abusers and
yes.
come to the Green Party. Vote for Jill. Yeah,
So
no,
thank you to
thank you so
everybody.
much, Sheila, for having me on.
No, it was a
And
pleasure.
yes, of course. And if you're in Texas, please reach out to volunteer with our campaign.
Mhm.
And also register to vote before the deadline of October 7th.
Oh
In
yes.
Texas, we unfortunately we do not have online voter registration.
Mm,
So you have to print out the application and mail it in
right.
or turn it into your local county elections office.
Hmm. So please do that. The link, it will be in the show notes of this episode, and it's very important. Okay, I know it seems hopeless, but if we're just sitting there doing nothing, it's far more hopeless. We have to be able to enact change. Again, thank you so much, Marlon. Thank you to everybody who's listened in and watched us on YouTube. Y'all take care of yourself, and may peace be on you all.
Bye.